Today we'll cover for a few minutes the needs of a woman, how to understand and meet your wife's needs. Let's go to Ephesians 5 and verse 28. So all men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man yet hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the Lord the church. So when we start talking about uh, loving our wives, especially for men, what we have to understand is basically the general makeup of a woman. You can't love her without understanding her. You're never going to fully understand her, but there are some basic things that every woman has in common. They may not be in order and they may not be generalized in order, but there are basic needs or basic things that she needs in order to survive. Or needs you to understand about her. When a woman marries a man, he must understand that she is a blessing from God, that she is a gift to him, his best friend, his lover, helpmate, and his main supporter. However, if he does not give the required amount of time and attention to her, he could lose her not only physically, but also mentally. And when we talk about physically and mentally losing her, mentally, she's not going to be as involved or interested in your daily activities or things that you're going through, your pains, your sorrows, your sufferings. Physically, she could actually be under the same roof or the same house with you, but she's not in tune with you. Am I with me? So basically what you have is a situation or a scenario where you just have roommates. There's no intimacy, there's no connection, there's no bonding. You're just going through the daily functions of paying bills, eating dinner, watching the kids, those type things. All right? For men or husbands to understand their wives and to be successful in marriage and relationships, they must understand the four basic needs of a woman. Like I said before, there's no particular order, but the four basic needs will be the same. And when I say basic needs, these aren't the only needs or desires a woman has, but these are the basic ones. So if we can get to the basics, we can start to bond and build something together. Number one, basic need for a woman is security. A woman needs to know she is safe with you. She needs to know she is and will be cared for, physically and financially. The husband must communicate to his wife through word and action that he cares for her above anything other than God. The wife must know her husband is tuned into her concerns and needs. Even though he may not be able to physically meet her needs, he must show that he is concerned. A wife must know what her husband will be willing to give up for her. She must know that her husband will sacrifice for her. And when we talk about a wife knowing what her husband will give up for her, let's take work, for example. Depending on the financial situation of the family, she could not be that concerned about the finances at this particular time. She's more concerned with your presence or your ability to spend time with her. So she may make a demand for your time, not only the finances. Even though you have committed to her verbally and through action that you are committed to her financially, she may still want your presence more than the finances. So what that says to a man is that she's willing to go through the struggle, willing to go through the hard time for a period of time, but she needs your attention. She needs your focus right now on her. Am I with me? Husbands, do not assume you know how to take care of your wife. As a husband, he needs to seek his wife's input on how she wants to be cared for, how she wants to be protected. He must ask her, am I caring for you properly? Or do you feel secure? Husband must be prepared for a negative answer. If he is not prepared for a no or a negative answer, choose another time, but you have to ask. He must listen and hear clearly her concerns and resist the need to become defensive. Because when she's actually opening her heart to him, to her husband, and telling him what she needs from him, how she wants to be protected, how she wants to be cared for, husbands, we have to be careful that we don't get defensive and say, well, I do that. We have to be careful that we don't shut it down as that's really not that important. I think you need protection or support in this area. Am I with me? So when she's opening up to you, she's being vulnerable. So men, we have to be careful that we don't shut that down by attacking that, because when a woman is being vulnerable, she is more open to attack from her own husband. Because when she's being open and honest and vulnerable, what she's saying is, I need to be protected. Even though she's voicing her concerns, she still wants to be protected by her husband through his words and through his actions. So if he is saying to her, I hear what you're saying, but I think you need this, over time, she will either shut down or she will not truthfully convey that to you. In other words, she'll dance around the object or she'll dance around the subject in order to keep from being hurt again, because husband, we've already shown her that we are defensive in that area. Am I with me? Husbands must communicate through word and action his admiration for his wife. A woman needs to hear her husband tell her how pretty she is, how beautiful she is, how awesome she is. She needs to know what her husband thinks of her. Even in a heated argument, he must convey to her that he is still committed to her. Disappointment, being upset or angry, it's okay for her to know those things. But even at those times, she must be confident that you are still committed to her. Criticism or making your wife dig for compliments will amplify her insecurities. The husband is the first line of defense against attacks on her esteem. Therefore, as husbands, we must be aware that complimenting her helps build her esteem or helps to aid in taking away those insecurities that she has. Side note, it's not in my notes, but I just felt I need to bring this out. A lot of men will look at women when they dress a certain way. Men, we must understand that when women dress a certain way, it's not, most times, it's not for men. When a woman dresses a certain way, she is dressing to present herself or speak to other women. Am I with me? So when a woman is dressed to kill, let's say that, can I say that? Dressed to kill? She's not doing that to get attention from men most times. Most times it is to present herself a certain way to another woman. Make sense? Because women are harder on other women as far as their appearance. So when women dress a certain way, they are saying to another woman, I got it together, or this is me. And when they're dressed that way, it's supposed to take away that insecurity by looking a certain way that there's no flaws. Am I with me? So 9 times out of 10, it's not to get attention from men, it's to ward off attacks from other women. Okay? Husband must continue to communicate with his wife his faithfulness to her. Men and women must understand adultery is more than a physical act, but more of an attitude. Even though a man may not have slept with a woman outside of the marriage, but he may carry the spirit of unfaithfulness, such as looking at other women, making comments about other women. When a wife is in tune with her husband, she doesn't necessarily have to see him do this or hear him do it. She picks up on it. It's a vibe that a man carries when he's being unfaithful, where he has unfaithful thoughts or unfaithful feelings. Okay? I'm not going to go into that too much. A husband must communicate his commitment to provide financially. Finances are one of the most important areas of security for a woman. Wife needs to know her husband is committed to her financially, and that may be expressed through when they pray together, that they pray for finances, or they pray for another means of finances. He may seek employment, even though he may have a job, he may seek other employment because of the increase in finances. Also, he may aggressively seek the best employment possible or seek opportunities, and he must be wise with his finances, or in other words, being a good steward of the finances. It's okay to spend money on a vacation or go out and just, have a good weekend, but at the same time, you can't spend the money that's dedicated to something else. Because a woman, she's going to enjoy that time, but when that bill comes due, and you tell her, well, we spent that money in Dallas, she's not going to be too thrilled with it. But the thing that men have to understand is we've already set a tone for her that you may not be trustworthy with finances. A woman would rather hear you say, no, we can't spend this, than we can't pay this. Make sense? Number two need for a woman is non-sexual touching or non-sexual affection. Hugs, kisses, body rubs, massages. Wives need that from their husbands because it says to her that he thinks about her more than just a sexual object. Non-sexual touching allows a couple to grow in a non-sexual way, which means that they're bonding through touching. That means it says to her that he's into me, he cares for me, he loves me. And it says from the husband to her, I see you as more than a sexual object. Or it could mean that I enjoy touching you, or I enjoy spending time with you. So when that growth starts to happen, their communication is more open, touching is more open. And then it grows from there, and I'll cover that a little later as we get down into this. The number three need for a woman is open communication, open and honest communication. Men must understand women have a need for detailed and honest communication. Men must understand that communication is an essential need, not just a want. Men must understand when they are not open with her, she will become frustrated and over time lose interest in you and your daily activities. Because the wife is in position to aid the husband as Urza Conegdo, to help him with his mission. She needs to know his heart, his pains, his fears. She must know him intimately in order to feel secure with him and to help him with his mission that God has given. So for men, a lot of times, what men do is when we feel frustrated, or we're going through something, men have a tendency to shut down because a lot of times men will feel that's a sign of weakness to express your feelings. So if your wife doesn't understand your feelings, it can be misread and mislead her to the point where she's taking the attack when it's not actually against her. Right? So in being open and honest with communication with your wife, women need details. For example, if there is a major issue going on in the family and you know about it, she's going to want to know everything that you know in order for her to process it. Because she is in the role of support, she's in the role of help. So she can't effectively help without knowing the details. Right? As we said last week, Urza Conegdo is it's a Hebrew word. The explanation or the definition is to contrast or to go against. So if she doesn't understand the path that you're on, she's probably going to come against that. So in order for her to go along with you, she has to understand. You two have to be walking the same way, understand what each other understands in order to go the same way. So men, we can't hold back information, vital information from her and expect her to just go along. It's not in her nature. So if there's a problem with the finances, it's easier and it's better for her to know now than to know later. Here we go. Number 4 need for leadership. Regardless of how dominant, independent, or passive a woman may be or appear, she has a need to be led by a caring, loving, righteous man. This does not mean that she wants to be dominated. She wants to be mistreated, treated as a servant, or treated as a slave. But she wants to submit to a man that will care for her, has her best interest, he is committed to her, and he desires her. There are 4 types of husbands that are destructive to the marriage relationship. and they cause women a lot of pain, a lot of grief. Number one is the dominant husband. Number two, the passive husband. Number three, the immoral husband. And number four, the distracted husband. Distracted. The dominant husband, there are basically 5 causes which will cause a man to be dominant. Number one cause, under-nurturing or detached parents. When a boy is growing up, and if he grows up without affection and guidance, or little or no nurturing, he will grow into a man that has underdeveloped sense of independency or overdeveloped sense of independency and identity. In other words, a self-made man or a me man. He may develop a strong personality for fear of being emotional, being seen emotional, or letting people get too close. When he marries, the type of woman he will typically look for is a woman that suffers from low self-esteem. That relationship will be a short-lived relationship due to the fact over time she will resent him for dominating her, and he will probably leave because he sees her as weak. Mismodeling. When a boy chooses a role model, he normally seeks somebody that's macho, strong, independent. He may take on that role model personality, mannerisms, may begin to think like them and follow their beliefs. When boys are young, there's a lot of pressure on young men and boys to be macho, to be strong, not show fear, not show weakness. Men that grow up in those types of environments may grow up believing that showing affection is weakness, and that will hinder him eventually over time. And eventually, as they get married and get older and get married, it destroys the relationships. Men that grow up in dominated environments typically have a passive personality, or some men that grow up in dominated environments will have a passive personality, in which relationships don't last because women will lose respect for them, because women normally don't respect a weak man. Okay? Ignorance and insecurity. Ignorance and insecurity will cause a man to overcompensate for his life. For example, a boy growing up without a role model of how to love a woman or treat a woman will feel insecure and no confidence around women. So he will overcompensate his masculinity to hide that or to mask that. Sin and deception. There are some men that just don't know why they're dominant or they're selfish the way they are. And it's because of sin nature. Number 5, the dominant or aggressive temperament. There are some men that are just, for lack of a better term, just angry. They don't understand why. It could be something from the past, could be hurt relationships, or it could be just a frustration of not trying to understand women. The number 2 type of husband, the passive husband, one that refuses to take the role of leadership or headship in the family. Men must understand his wife's need for leadership or headship. If he cannot lead or refuses to lead, eventually his wife will become frustrated with him, and there will be major problems in the relationship because of her insecurities as far as being protected. A man that will not take leadership or headship actually goes against one of a woman's basic needs, and that is security. When a man does not take his role as headship or leadership, it affects her insecurities as far as being protected and being secure with him. The immoral husband. The immoral husband, more than likely, is one that's been rejected or deprived of wholesome physical affection as a child. As he grows older, that appetite for physical touch may be perverted because of the society we live in today, may be perverted into a sexual thing. So it's hard for a man of this type to have a lot of female acquaintances without trying to turn it or seeing it as a sexual thing. The distracted husband. The distracted husband is one whose focus is not on the family, it's not on his wife. It's more on his activities, sports, his job, or his side activities. The distracted husband can be uh, looked at as a master manipulator. Because if someone, especially his wife, comes to him and asks for him to spend more time at home or to cut something out, like we said before, a woman must know what a man will give up for her. If she comes to him and says, I need you to spend more time at home, don't go into work today, call in sick, or take a leave day, that type of man will probably say, or more likely say, I'm doing this for you, I'm doing this for the family. And that role reversal comes back on her. So now she has to stand back or step back because he's already voiced to her that the job or the finances is more important than her. Make sense? The ideal man for a woman is a sensitive and affectionate man, not a man that cries, you know, because the sun came up. Or I'm not saying that. I'm not saying there's wrong with that. What I'm saying is a sensitive man is being sensitive and attentive to his wife's needs, to her concerns. A woman wants a strong leader, someone who makes decisions after prayer. Most times we would look at it as families that pray together because now we both know what each other is asking God for. So we can go together. So we go forward together. The ideal man for a woman is one who honors her opinions. Not that he takes her opinions and that's his decision. That he honors her opinion. That means that he hears her, he considers what she says, they talk about it, they come to a conclusion. If her opinion or her view of it is not accepted, it doesn't go against her as a person. It just means he made a decision because of what they talked about. That does not mean what she said or her opinion did not matter. So women have to understand that also. Because you said this to him, that does not mean he has to take it and make a decision based on it. It's based off of the communication between the two, right? And we also have to look at the big picture. God holds him responsible for the family, right? The ideal man for a woman is one that is a hard worker, who is who is faithful and faithfully provides for her financially. One who is generous but able to manage money wisely. One who is a good father, leads his family in the ways of the Lord, will help domestically. A man that is a strong leader but has a soft heart. Men must know also that women are sexual beings. A woman's sex drive is not as high as a man's, but however, she does have them. Okay? I'm just thinking because my mind is going like, when you talk about like married, it's like sex is great until you get married, then it stops. I'm like, okay, just me. Okay, men must understand that great sex for a woman begins with her life as a whole, or her priority in his life. So when we look at a woman's makeup, a woman is emotionally in tune to her surroundings. So if she's involved in, let's say, her parents' life, she's involved in her kids' life, she's involved with friends or church activities, all these things, and if there's issues with any of those things, she's emotionally tuned to that. So that is a problem for her. She's not at peace, she's not at ease. So for men, most times all we have to do is see our wife a certain way, or after a period of time, we're ready to go. Not so much with her. So when a woman is totally into it and is satisfying for her, it's based on all the stars aligning, you doing your part, she's feeling safe and secure with you. She understands that you're committed to her. She understands that there are some things that you can't physically do for her, but if you could, you would. She knows that. There's no doubt. Sex is great for her. Also, men must understand most women find talking a turn on. So the more a man opens up to her, tells her about himself, exposes himself to her, the more sexual she'll become. Women do experience performance anxiety. So men, we have to be delicate as far as our women's nature because there are certain things she may not feel comfortable doing or performing. So to put pressure on her shuts her down or makes her more unwilling. Right? Attention after sex can be vital to a woman's satisfaction. You don't need to go into it. Let's do it. After sex, the cuddling or the talking afterwards, or if it's a massage or anything that you're going to do to her to make her feel like this was more than just your satisfaction is vital to her because now she's not seen as just a sexual object. Right? Women need non-sexual touching and tenderness. So if you see your wife or you see your woman, you just want to give her a hug, massage her feet, massage her shoulders, do that. But you can't make it a sexual thing because, and I'll say this side note, if there has been issues in the past between the husband and the wife where anytime she touches her, it's for sex, or he hadn't seen her, hadn't talked to her all day, but now when it's 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, the lights go out, now it's sex time, she's not going to be into it. Now, there's two parts to that. Sometimes a woman will do it because women have the gift of sex. Men have the need for sex. So women most times will have sex out of the gift for him. So men, we have to be careful that we don't take that as she's not into me because, no fireworks, we ain't waking up the neighbors. So we have to take that as a gift, right? But also we have to look at it as she may shut down or become frigid because the only time you touch her is for sex. So men, we have to communicate to her that when I massage her shoulders or rub her feet or uh, just give her a hug and squeeze her or something, or just make her lay down on my shoulder. This is not a sexual thing. It is because I care about you, I'm committed to you, I'm connected to you. Now, over time, it may not happen the first day. She may still be closed off or restricted. But you have to build that over time, especially if there's a past of that. Okay? Women respond sexually to romance and love as a man responds to visual images. Now, there's one thing that the human body produces, but God designed it pretty much for men as far as a memory thing. When men see their wives a certain way, or they remember their wives a certain way, there's a drug, epinephrine, that is to enhance the memory. But because we live in a perverted society, pornography or things of that nature, women scantily dressed, those images stay in a man's mind, and that comes from that drug. So God designed it for men to see their wives a certain way. And that's one of the reasons why men continue to come home to the wives. Right? Sounds strange, though. But we have to also understand that love and romance have different meanings for each person. These aren't in your notes, these are side notes. This is love and romance may mean different things to each person in the relationship. So we have to look at society also. Society will tell us or tell women that romance is a man that will go out and bring these flowers and he'll come and give you these flowers with his shirt open, his hair blown in the wind. That is an image that's pushed on people, and people will measure their relationships on that. Your relationship will not stand a chance if you base your relationship on images that you see. That's why the epinephrine thing is so easily perverted because it was meant for good. Now, the other thing is for men, Men, when we see a woman or we see an image, we take that image and then we go try to project that on our wives or project what we saw or heard on our wives. She's not going to feel comfortable with that because that's not her. That's not who she is. That's not who she projected to you. Now, if you talk about it, or if there's communication, open enough communication to talk about that, if she's okay with it, then it's fine. But if you're upset because she won't do this or she won't dress this way, now you're creating a problem because one, you're not honoring her. Actually, it's disrespectful because it would be the same as if she said, "I want you to go to the gym and I want you to look like this guy. Or I want you to lose all this weight and I want you to look like this guy." So for a man, that's disrespectful. And it's the same thing for a woman. Also, when in that communication, men, we have to understand that if she's not comfortable, that's not saying no. It's just saying she's not comfortable at this time, right? So for men, we have to be extra careful that we don't take her not wanting to fulfill our need or not wanting to be as involved in something as we are as rejection. Because one of the basic needs of a man is to be honored and respected, and rejection is the biggest, one of the biggest deals that go against men because it falls under fear. So when we're dealing with our wives as far as disrespect and dishonor, we have to make sure that we don't project on our wives something that she's uncomfortable with or someone that she's not. And the only way you're going to know that is through communication, open and honest communication, detailed communication, because women need details. So if you want her to dress a certain way or perform a certain thing, she needs details. So men must understand, as far as the sexual thing with women, men's sex drive is higher than women's. So a man doesn't take that long to get in the mood. So for a man to get his woman into the mood, his wife into the mood, it's going to take some time to get her there. So what what would be best or what would be suggested is what that foreplay, if I can say that. It starts in the morning. If you know you want to have sex with your wife tonight, start with foreplay in the morning. It could be a text message, a phone call, leave a note next to the bed, leave a note on the pillow, something to get her thinking about you and getting her in the mood early in the morning. Are you with me?